The power of communication for designers. So as I was saying, I'm André Mota, and since I was a kid, I always loved to communicate. I was in a theater club when I was growing up, and I loved arts, and I loved design, but I also loved communication. So when I went to university, I decided to study communication design, because it was like a mix of these two worlds. And then after my university, I worked as a kids teacher in a study center. I co-founded a plant shop with my father. I had my own TV show, and I have a TikTok account about my travels. And this is all very random, but I'm only sharing this because they all have one thing in common, which is communication. And now that I'm working as a product designer at Pixelmatters, which is a product design studio in Porto, in Portugal, now that I'm working as a product designer, I noticed that communication is very, very important also in the design role. And that's why I want to talk about this. Because it's not only about good design, it's about how we sell it. It is obviously important that you have the skills and you are good at your craft. But if you can't sell your design and present your design and justify your design choices, it's all worthless. So I'm going to share some tips on how to do that. First of all, what is our role as designers? This is a common question, and I want to talk about my view and Pixelmatters' view about this question, that we are collaborators, we should not be executors. And what does this mean? It means that sometimes in the design process, you know, as if you are a designer, you will not have the same view as your client. And if you are just an executor, you'll be like, oh, you want this? I'll do it. Oh, suddenly you want that? I'll do it. And I don't think designers should be just executors. We should be collaborators, because we have a lot of expertise, and we know and we studied. So I think that our relationship with the clients should be of collaboration. And to be able to do that, we have to have a strong relationship and a strong connection with the client. And that's the first thing that I want to talk about, how to create a strong connection with your client. First tip, a good kickoff. This is very important to start in the right foot. When you are first meeting your client, you should have ready a list of questions to ask, like, what is your product, obviously? What do you want to make? How is your product different than the other products? Do you have references of products that you like, other ones that you don't like, and why? If you have visual references of websites that you think are beautiful and work really well, or the opposite. If you want your product to be more approachable or more elite, or if you want the look and feel to be more fun or more serious, all these questions will provide the answers that we need to be in the right foot to understand the client and to design better for them. And then, strong communication. Obviously, this is the theme of the presentation. Strong communication is very important to be a great designer. I don't think communication is a nice to have for designers. I actually believe it is a really important skill. It is a major skill for designers if you want to succeed. And I'll give you two examples of situations where communication, sometimes it's overlooked, but it's actually very important. First of all, small talk. If you are good at small talk, you have like a huge superpower, because small talk is so important to connect with people. And for instance, when you're meeting your clients and you have a call with them, when you are waiting for other people, you should be the one that speaks about something, find a subject that everyone will relate to and talk about it, say a joke, something like that. Small talk is very important for people to like you and to connect with you. And if your client likes you, they will probably be more connected with the design that you're presenting, and they will more likely approve it and resonate with it. And another situation is about communicating with confidence, because it's very different if I'm like, so this is what I did, this is my design. I like it, but let me know what you think. We can change it if you don't like it, let me know. This is not confidence. And if I say like, hi, this is what we did because of X, Y, Z, let me know what you think, I'm here to help. This type of communication is secure. And this, if you don't believe in your work, and if you speak like you don't believe in your work, why would a client believe in your work? So you have to be very confident when you're communicating with your client. And third tip, keep the client in the loop. Make them part of the design process and solutions. This is basically the idea that we shouldn't alienate the client during the entire design process. Sometimes we tend to be like, okay, let's have a meeting to start the project. What is the briefing? Let me know what you want. And then you disappear and you design a whole thing. And then you come back at the end. Here's the final result. And you expect the client to resonate with it and to be connected with it. But it's really important to involve the client during the entire design process so that they can feel connected with what you're designing. So the next question is how to properly communicate during the design process. I'm going to talk about two different types of communication, sync and async. Sync communication is basically real-time interactions in a call, in a meeting, something that requires that real-time interaction. And async communication doesn't require, it can be like a call, not a call, but like sending an email, waiting for a response that it's not in real time. Both are very useful, but I think they should be used in different times and in different occasions, and I'm going to share how I think it should be. Pause for the water. So, sync communication. At Pixelmatters, we usually have weekly meetings with the clients, same day, every week. These are very important for you to basically stay in the same page, keeping the client in the loop, as I was saying. You can share what you have been doing since the last time you met. You can give space to the client for them to share their concerns, or if they have any questions or suggestions. It's basically a ritual to make sure that you and your clients are in the same page and are connected during the entire design process. And then quick chats. These only happen occasionally once you, sometimes you are working on something and you feel blocked because you have this question that it's kind of weird to send via text because it's like a visual concept, and you think like a 5-minute call would solve this immediately, and so you think, okay, maybe let's just jump on a call and talk about this, and suddenly you aren't blocked and you didn't have to wait until the next weekly meeting or wait to get a response that maybe won't be the exact thing that you wanted. So these two situations I think should be addressed synchronously. And then for async communication, briefings, this is really important. We always like to receive our briefings via text so that we know what we're talking about in the same thing. And sometimes, even if the client doesn't want to share the briefing because sometimes they don't have a clear idea of what they want, and asking them to send it written can be a challenge. So even if in those cases, we write the briefing from what we understood, and then we send to the client, like, this is what we understood from what you were saying. Can you please read it and confirm that we are all aligned and we all want the same thing? And this helps us start in the right foot as well. Then meeting notes. We always send a message with the topics that we discussed after those weekly meetings that I was talking about. But it's very simple. It's just to make sure, again, that we all got the same understanding from the meeting. Like, here's what we talked about, this, and this. Here are the next steps that we discussed. Let us know if we have anything to add. And then we send to the client. And sometimes, further in the design process, we'll be like, why did we make this decision? I kind of forgot. So you have the meeting notes and you go back and circle back to that moment and remember, oh, this was why we discussed this in February and now I remember. So these are very helpful for that too. And finally, presentations, design presentations. This is kind of disruptive because some design studios and some designers are really used to present their designs synchronously on a call or in real person meeting, and we always like to do our presentations async. They can be written or they can be in video, and this is a great advantage that I'm going to talk about further, but first I want to share some tools for async communication that I use every day, and I think they can be very helpful for you too. First of all, Basecamp. Basecamp is basically a tool to keep everything in the same place. Who knows Basecamp here can raise their hand? Okay, like 30%. So for the others, Basecamp is basically a tool where you can add add tickets about everything that you're doing and organize them from figuring it out to in progress, waiting for feedback, and you can move. And inside each one of these tickets, you can register your briefings, send your written presentations that I was saying. The client can reply in that exact thread. So we keep everything that is designed in the same place. It's very helpful. And then Notion AI. Notion AI, it's a great AI tool for you to draft your design presentations. If you don't know, basically this is a random sentence that I wrote. Oh, this is a problem of the videos that we're struggling with. But basically, you can select the sentence and click on Improve Writing, and Notion AI will instantly suggest improvements to your writing. It's very helpful to make your presentations be like really professional looking. And sometimes if you want to change the tone of what you were saying, you can make it feel more friendly or more professional. You can make it shorter. Sometimes when you feel like you wrote too much, it helps in all of those cases. And finally, Loom. Loom is very famous. You probably know this one, but it's a tool to record videos, and you can share your screen. It's nice to, for example, when you want to share a prototype and talk about it, you can guide the client through it. And one of the greatest things about Loom is that it allows the client to give feedback in specific parts of the video. So it's very good to know exactly what you're talking about in the exact second. Now that we have the tools, here is the part of how to present your design. First tip, structure your presentation. This is very important because when you are making a written presentation, you have to be really focused on having a structure that is very clear and helpful for users to read. This is the template that we use at Pixelmatters. It's basically an introduction, design points. They're always numbered because it's very helpful for clients to give feedback. For example, they want to talk about 2.1, so we know exactly what you're referring to. And then the link and any additional questions that we might have. Second tip, avoid making your presentations too long. As we know, our clients sometimes don't have the time and they don't make the effort to read everything that we're sending. And we have a lot of important things for them to read. So we have to think as every word we are writing is $1 we are spending. So let us make it as short as possible and focusing on the things that actually add value to that presentation. And that is connected to the third point, which is do not describe the design. We don't need to be like, so on the top right, we have a login button, and on the top left, we have the menu, and if you scroll down, the user can see that you're sharing the design, that you're sharing the prototype. You should focus on why you made those decisions and why they are valuable for your product. So instead of saying on the top left you have the menu, you should say why you chose that kind of scheme of information. Fourth, anticipate clients' questions. This is very important because sometimes we are so used to look at the design and to talk about it as a designer and between team members that we forget that sometimes when we are presenting a written presentation, the client is going to be looking at it for the first time and doesn't have the context that we have. So we always have to try to look at the presentation as if it was the first time and think about all the questions that the client might have about our presentation. And then include the answers to those questions that might pop up in the presentation. And with this, you are basically saving time because you are answering the questions that the client would have, and you are reducing the feedback and the back and forth messages which we all hate. Number 5, refer to past requests and information. This is very important because a lot of your design choices will be based on past requests and stuff that we discussed. So you can be like, we remember we spoke about ABC, and that's why we decided to do XYZ. So in that specific moment, you are already explaining why you made those design decisions, and the client will be connected to that because they will remember that it was actually something that we discussed. And finally, give client time to digest the design. This is very important, and this is always happening naturally because we do async communication for this presentation, so we don't require immediate feedback. But it is very important, and this is the main advantage of having a sync communication for these presentations, because first impressions matter a lot, but shouldn't matter everything. And this is an example. When you are in a group of people that you don't know, you will probably form a first impression of that specific person. But that doesn't mean you know the person, because you just met them and you have obviously a first impression. But that doesn't actually mean that you know everything about that person and you have a strong opinion about them. You have probably to take more time to be with that person, chat one-on-one, and then you will have a more proper opinion. And the same thing happens with design. You can't expect to be like, here's the design, what do you think about it? And expect immediate feedback, because that feedback will probably not be the most constructive feedback. Because when you are asked to give feedback to something immediately, the way you think is going to be like, let me see what I can say, what I can criticize, and maybe what's wrong. So you're looking at it in a more judgmental way, and we don't want the clients to look at it and be forced to give that feedback. So when we are sending the designs and be like, take your time and then write me your feedback, by asking them to write feedback, we are making them make sense. And this happens because sometimes when we have feedback from clients, we'll be like, this actually doesn't make much sense. What are they saying? But if we force them to write their own feedback, they will be the ones that will be like, yeah, maybe this doesn't make sense. Let me rewrite this. Let me think about this once more. Let me share this with my team. So the feedback will be filtered to us when we receive it. But what if we have different visions? Because this will happen, and even if we use all these tools, sometimes we actually just have different visions, and we have to work with that. First of all, first psychology trick is choose your battles. And this basically means that you can list a thing, make a list of topics that you are in disagreement with your client, and you should circle the ones that matter the most, the ones that are more important for you and for the product that you're designing. And for the ones that don't matter as much, you can talk to the client. He'll be like, okay, let's go your way, or let's find a compromise. And by doing that, the client will see that you are open to discuss, and they will be more open to discuss as well on those other topics that you identified to be the main topics that you really want to fight for. Second, proven record. This is basically sharing real-world examples. When, for example, you suggest something and the client will be like, I don't think that works, let's do something else. But you actually know that like a similar product with a similar problem worked their way out with this kind of solution. So you can use that example and be like, hey, company A did this with a very similar circumstance, and it actually worked. Take a look at this case study, for example, or take a look at this article that talks about this. And that can help. Doesn't mean that the client will be like, oh, okay, suddenly everything is fine. But it can actually help the client to build more trust in you and believe your expertise. Third, storytelling. Everything is a story. I'm telling you a story about how to communicate. And once you are presenting your design, you are also telling a story. So our presentations need to have this storytelling thing. And this can be like giving you a practical example. Sometimes, not sometimes, but always, until you reach the final design that you are going to present, you tried a lot of different things. And sometimes it's nice to talk about all those experiences that you made. Like if you include in your presentation, we remember you said you wanted something that looked fun. So for this specific part, we tested with blue and yellow, but it didn't work because X, Y, Z. So we actually tried with purple, and it fit perfectly. By doing this, you're telling a story, and you are already like avoiding the client to be like, I'm not sure about purple, have you tried blue? Because you said you tried blue and it didn't work because of X, Y, Z. So the client already knows why you came to that final suggestion. And finally, offering options. This is something that I always do when we are in disagreement with the client. Takes some time, but basically it's like I'm presenting view 1, which is the client's request, what they wanted. But I'm also presenting V2, which is what I think that actually works. And this way, we are not telling them why our idea works better. We are showing them like visually why it works better. And sometimes it can be funny for you as a designer, because while you are designing view 1, which you thought it's wrong, suddenly you'll be like, oh, OK, it kind of works. And now I'm presenting 2 options that I'm comfortable with both, and the client I'll be happy with whatever the client chooses. So it can also be very good for you as a designer to understand if sometimes what you thought was wrong, maybe it's not that wrong. And even if it's wrong, you can be explaining the client why you think that it doesn't work, obviously. This is an example of a presentation where I shared 2 versions, and I'm comfortable with both. So it can be very interesting for you to do that with a client. It will always surprise them that you actually made 2 different designs for that specific thing. And finally, I want to know a little bit about you. If you have other psychology tricks that you use, if you have more tools for presenting your design, if you have any success or failure stories that you would like to share, I would just wanted to ask you a little bit. And I hope you liked the presentation. This is a QR code to find me online and the socials for Pixelmatters. And thank you so much.
Thank you.